We are 7 videos in to this semi-series thing where I talk about the best third-party spells for your D&D games, because there are just so very many of them. I am limited, as those who have watched this before know, to the D&D Beyond stuff, just because that's where I play D&D with my friends and with my enemies, I guess. Anyway, today is, we're closing in on the final few videos on this little thing. Let's get into it. First up, as always, is my honourable mention, which is a niche spell from Grim Hollow called Crown of Radiance, which is one action to cast, and it lasts for 10 minutes, but with no concentration. I think it's the no concentration thing that lands it here. Not as an honourable mention, but on the list at all. A flaming crown of holy light adorns your head until the spell ends. A fiend, fey, or undead that moves within 30 feet of you or begins its turn within 30 feet of you takes 2d8 radiant damage. The crown shreds? The crown sheds bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an additional 30 feet. While niche, obviously it only works on 3 creature types, and depending on the campaign you're running, this might never come up, which is why it's kind of in the honourable mentions, as opposed to on the list itself, all the way around to last time. There is no save, it just does the 2d8 damage. Radiant damage is usually quite solid. It can be very good against fiends and undead specifically. There are creatures which can regenerate if they don't take radiant damage, that's pretty solid. And it's just there. There's no concentration required, which is lovely. There's no action other than the initial casting. It just does its thing for 10 minutes, which is great. And if all else fails, you also get some light, which is nice in a lot of situations. So good work, Crown of Radiance. I'm proud of you and everything you've done. Onto the list proper, we have Antiballistics Field, which is from Valda's Spire Secrets, specifically the Gunslinger class this time around. This is an action to cast, also lasts for 10 minutes, but this one is concentration. A 40-foot emanation extends from you, disrupting projectiles and causing ranged weapons to malfunction. Within the emanation, whenever a ranged weapon is used for an attack, the weapon immediately malfunctions and the attack is lost. A malfunctioning weapon can't be used to make an attack, so the creature takes the utilize action to fix the weapon malfunction. Ranged attack using weapons whose projectiles passed through the emanation have disadvantage and deal only half damage on a hit. This is a fantastic way to just mess up a ranged fight, basically. Even if you can't get it onto the ranged enemies, you can still mess them up just by having it around you, so it's a really good way of protecting yourself, and it's just cool. I like it. Next we have Chains of Beleth, which is Mondays, am I right? Anyway, it's an action to cast. It's concentration for a minute. It has a 20-foot radius sphere. Barbed chains ending in meat hooks burst from the ground from a point you can see within range, flailing at a 20-foot. Each creature in their area makes a dex saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 8d6 piercing damage and has the restrained condition. The first time a creature enters the chain's area on a turn or starts its turn there, it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or have the restrained condition while in the area or until it breaks free. A creature restrained by the chain can take an action to make a strength athletics check against your spell save DC. If it succeeds, it's no longer restrained. If it succeeds, it's no longer restrained. When a creature restrained by the spell ends its turn, the creature takes 3d6 bludgeoning damage. And then if you upcast it, the damage goes up by 1d6 for both parts. So in terms of damage and radius, actually, this is fireball, but 3 levels higher, which is obviously not good. But the restrained condition is quite powerful, and it has permanent damage, especially if your spell save DC is high enough, and if they do not have the strength required to break out. So I really like this as a control spell. It's pretty darn potent, especially if you can push creatures back in, because even if they have escaped, you can just plop them back in. It's not an issue, right? Which is nice. Next is Weave Numen, which is an action to cast. No, it's not. Next, we've got another one of the curses from the Grim Hollow Player's Guide. These have special rules, and generally something you might use against your players, so have fun with that. This is an hour to cast, and it lasts until the spell. It gets gradually worse as specific triggers happen, basically. Check the guide for the specific triggers, please. The spell curses a creature with painful hypersensitivity to physical sensations. The target must make a constitution save against your spell save DC. I remember I put this in here because it's sensory overload when you're during a migraine, or just sensory overload in general. And like, as somebody who has migraines and also gets sensory overload, this is just a mood. This whole thing is a mood. Anyway, if the creature succeeds on the save, it takes 4d6 thunder damage and is aware that it was targeted by a curse, and it also takes 1d6 thunder damage at the start of each of its turns. Bear in mind, this costs an hour to cast and the range is only 60 feet, so you do need to be kind of careful with this. On a failed save, the creature takes 8d10 thunder damage and is cursed. From then on, things get worse. The next time the target hears a loud noise, it gets a crippling headache and the curse advances to stage 1, at which point the creature avoids bright light, loud noises, extreme temperatures, and doesn't like to be touched. That's just a migraine. Stage 2, the cursed creature can't stand the feeling of rough or heavy clothing against its skin, it can't wear armor, it has vulnerability to thunder damage from its hypersensitivity, and additionally it has disadvantage on attack rolls if the area is in bright light. That's just sensory overload. We've all got jumpers which are just like, I can't wear this, right? That's a normal thing. Very relatable, I'm sure. And then stage 3, even mild sensory input becomes intolerable to the cursed creature. It's driven to dark and quiet layer, such as a deep cave or dungeon. The cursed creature can't willingly leave this layer and has vulnerability to all damage except for psychic damage while outside of its layer. Mood. And then the culmination, so the final form of this, is that the creature twists into a deformed figure and becomes a sightless agony, which is a monster that people can control. The guide here suggests that if a player gets hit by this and they end up turning into a monster, you should let the player control it during the fight that might break out afterwards, and I think that is incredible. Good work, Grim Hollow. Next is Doom of Stacked Stones from the Book of Ebon Tides. This is an action to cast and lasts for a minute, and has a range of 30 feet. You and 3 creatures of your choice must succeed on a Constitution saving throw when the spell is cast, and again at the start of each of your turns while the spell is in effect. It's a total of 10 saves, basically. A creature whose saving throw fails is restrained. If one of the 3 targeted creatures fails the saving throw, as many as 2 other creatures, each within 30 feet of the initial target, must make the same save. A restrained creature must continue to make saving throws each turn, and their condition worsens on failure. A lot of words to say that everyone has to make saving throws, basically. It also means that, so basically, you target 4 creatures of your choice, and then if someone fails, you can target 2 additional creatures, which is pretty cool. Basically, every time you fail, it gets worse. Every time you succeed, it gets better. On 1 fail, you're restrained. 2 fails, you're incapacitated. 3, you're stunned. 4, you're paralyzed. And 5, you're petrified. You're turned to stone. So this might go up and down throughout the fight or throughout the encounter, because this might not be a fight, given how many people this could potentially end up targeting. Each condition is added to the previous conditions, making it worse and worse as you go, basically. And each creature has to make the save basically on its turn. Also, if a creature succeeds against the save when they're restrained, it means that the spell is broken for them. You can end the spell at any time, but if you're turned to stone, the spell ends after all affected creatures make their saving throws. So I think their next saving throws. Creatures recover immediately when the spell ends, except for creatures turned to stone, which remain that way until the effect is removed. Creatures turned to stone can see, hear, and smell normally, but they don't need to eat or breathe. If Shatter is cast on a stone creature, it must succeed on a Constitution saving throw against the caster's DC, or be killed. Creatures transformed into stone can be restored with Dispel Magic, Greater Restoration, or comparable magic. It's just cool. I like it. Someone does point out that incapacitation does mean that you can't concentrate on the spell, which is true. It's just weird. Best in this instance isn't like it's a, game-breaking, overly powerful spell. I just love it as a concept. And as long as you've got a lot of con saves, you're fine, to be fair. If you're casting this and you don't have proficiency or advantage on your Constitution saves, then, don't do that. But yeah, if you've got resilient Constitution and enough con points, this is a pretty solid spell. I like it. Earthworm. This is an action to cast. It's concentration for a minute, and it is from Grim Hollows. Again, you transform the earth into a worm-like maw at an unoccupied point on the ground within range. As a bonus action, you get to make a melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of the worm. On a hit, the target takes piercing damage equal to 3d8 plus your spellcasting modifier. If the target is a large or smaller creature, it must succeed on a dex saving throw or be swallowed by the worm. A swallowed creature has the blinded and restrained conditions. It has total cover against all attacks and other effects outside of the worm, and it takes 6d6 bludgeoning damage at the start of each of your turns. A creature trapped inside the worm can take an action to make strength and athletics check against your spell save DC. If it succeeds, it's regurgitated and has the prone condition in an occupied space within 10 feet of the worm. As a bonus action, you can move the worm up to 30 feet. So you can attack with it, or you can move it. It's all very bonus action heavy, but you basically get to summon a purple worm and just to have it and control it. And that's cool. I like it a lot. Got another Valda's Spire of Secrets one here. This is Game of Fate. It is an action to cast, but it's also a ritual. And it lasts for an hour. You magically compel a creature within range that can hear and understand you to a non-magical game with vital consequences. An unwilling creature must succeed in a wisdom saving throw or be compelled to join you in the game. The loser of the game takes 66 psychic damage. If no player has won or lost by the end of the spell's duration, both you and the target take this damage. If you or one of your allies harms the target, you forfeit the game, and vice versa if the target or one of its allies harms you. Additionally, you and the target creature can negotiate for greater stakes. You can wager for higher psychic damage up to a maximum of 12d6, currency, property, or more esoteric rewards such as bestowal of a noble title. The spell reveals if a creature attempts to place a bet it cannot fulfill, and a bet is finalized when you and the target agree on the bet, solidifying the bet with a handshake or similar gesture. Property or currency bet on the game is teleported to the winner at the game's conclusion. The loser also magically compelled to take any action, such as bestowing the noble title wagered as part of the bet. Lastly, no spell, magical effect, or creature other than you can target or influence the game's outcome. Property teleporting to the loser is very funny if you've bet for a mansion or something, but ignoring that little silly thing, this is an incredibly cool roleplay. I think it's a super interesting combat spell as well, because you could technically do this to a creature and just take them out of the fight for however long it takes you to play your game. And the specifics of the game are entirely up to you and the DM. Basically. So it could just be a matter of rolling dice and seeing who gets the right one. You could play liar's dice. You could pull out an actual deck of cards and play blackjack or something. It's just a really funky spell, and I like it a lot. Ghastly Charge is from the Crooked Moon. It is an action to cast. It has a range of 90 feet in a line, as we will see. You call forth the spirits of long dead knights, which charge forward from you in a 90-foot long, 20-foot wide line, and then vanish. Each creature of your choice in the line must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, a target takes 5d12 necrotic damage, has the frightened condition until the start of your next turn, and must immediately use its reaction, if available, to move as far from you as it can, using the safest route. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage only, and the damage goes up by 1d12, each spell level above 6th. While not an especially damaging spell, 20 foot wide by 90 foot long is a lot, and the fact that you can choose which creatures in that line you want to make the saving throw means that you can do this pretty safely without actually damaging your allies, which is a big deal when you're doing line spells, because that can be a big part of the issue. It's just cool. And also, if they take the damage, they end up frightened. If they make the save once, there's nothing they can do about that. So it's a really strong spell. Next is Heartseeker, which is from Grim Hollow. I swear I like other books. Grim Hollow speaks to me, man. Heartseeker is an action to cast with concentration for a minute. It has a range of 300 feet. As part of casting the spell, you must expend 6 hit point dice, or the spell automatically fails. Blood flows from your body and then crystallizes into a barbed arrow, which launches at a creature. Make a ranged spell attack against a target within range. You don't need to be able to see them, notably. On a hit, roll the hit point dice expended to cast the spell, so that's 6 hit point dice. The creature takes piercing damage equal to the number rolled. Once lodged in the creature, the arrow begins to burrow towards its heart, rendering it susceptible to injury. Until the spell ends, the first successful attack against a creature after its turn ends is automatically a critical hit. The target must make a constitution saving throw at the end of each of his turns. On the failed save, the effect continues, and on success, the creature takes 3d8 necrotic damage and the spell ends. This is all kinds of cool. Being able to guarantee critical hits is very strong, as is doing lots of damage. So yeah, good stuff. This is a sorcerer or wizard spell, so theoretically you're doing 66 on this, but there are feats which let you mess around with the hit point dice, and if you multi-class for whatever reason, then that could be higher too, so it's worth keeping in mind. Still in Grim Hollow, 1 action to cast, 1 minute. This is Melting Curse. You target a creature and a metal object held or worn by that creature you can see within range. It's a 100-foot range. The creature makes a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 5d8 fire damage, and the targeted object melts and oozes to the ground, where it returns to its normal shape and temperature. If the object is magical, the creature has advantage on the saving throw. If the creature tries to retrieve or otherwise touch the object for the duration, the object heats and melts, and the creature takes 5d8 fire damage. The object returns to normal once the creature is no longer touching it or the spell ends. The damage increases by 1d8 for each spell level above 6th. This is basically an interesting way to kind of stop a creature holding a weapon for a little bit. It's kind of niche and complicated, but if you can force a creature to keep trying to hold it, say they're groveling with command or something, then you've got a good chance of dealing a fair amount of damage. And we like damage. Finally, another Grim Hollow one, we have Weave Numen. This is an action to cast, and it has concentration for up to 10 minutes. It affects you. That's right, you. Watching this video. This very video right now. You can sense the presence of magic within 120 feet of yourself. You see a faint aura around any visible creature or object within that range that bears magic, and you learn of its school of magic, if any. In addition, you gain 13 threads. You can spend these threads to gain benefits as described below, with no action required unless stated. When you cast a spell, you can expend 1 thread to enhance a spell, as if you had expended a spell slot 1 level higher than you did And you gain a number of tempo equal to 1 plus the level of the spell. Solid stuff. When a creature you can see within 120 feet of you casts a spell, you can take a reaction to expend 1 thread to interrupt the spell. If the spell is a level 3 or lower, the spell has no effect, and if it's spell level 4 or higher, you make an ability check using your spellcasting ability DC of 10 plus the spell's level. On a successful check, the spell fails and has no effect. And when you cast a spell that causes a creature to be healed or damaged, you can spend up to 6 threads. The amount of damage or healed caused to one of that creature increases by 4 times the number of expended threads. That's a lot of damage. You lose all remaining threads when the spell ends, and if you spend all threads granted by the spell, then the spell ends. You also gain an additional 2 threads per spell lot above level 6. This is just really strong. Yeah, it's just a really strong spell. Basically, you can deal an extra 24 damage to one of the creatures if you spend your threads, or you can heal by an extra 24, or you can enhance your spell levels or counter spells. Basically, it's just strong. And that is it for now, though. I hope you enjoyed this, and considering some of the spells for yourself, if there are ones that I have not chosen that you would have chosen, do let me know. I always love hearing about other spells. I've been saying this for the last couple of months at this point, I think. Yep, we're in December at the time of recording this, so I really hope we get some new third-party stuff. It's been nice to get first-party things, but I've found it a little underwhelming overall, and I long for the good old days. But yeah, we'll see what happens, right? It's the end of the year. It's very possible we don't get anything until January. Either way, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful time in the meantime, but I will see you next time. Goodbye.